Only a few Pan-African leaders mention Ethiopia as a representation of their fatherland or a connection to the enslaved Negroes, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, who organized the first Pan-African Congress in 1919. And he also mentions in this article that he wrote called Interracial Implications of the Ethiopian Crisis. Haile Selassie, Emperor of Ethiopia and not of Abyssinia, as his predecessors often called themselves. Abyssinia is a word of Semitic origin, but Ethiopia is Negro. Look at the pictures of Abyssinias, now widely current. They are as Negroed as American Negroes. If there is a black race, they belong to it. He also mentions how Ethiopia's Christian religion left once Rome came into Abyssinia and gave a new Christian doctrine. A new Christian religion came to Abyssinia in the 4th century and thus a third great center of Christianity, after Rome and Constantinople was established. Then came waves of conquest from the north and the history of Abyssinia became dim and shadowy. As Gibbon has written, encompassed on all sides by the enemies of their religion, the Ethiopians slept near 1,000 years, forgetful of the world by whom they were forgotten. Even though W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey had disagreements, the mentioning of Ethiopia as a connection to the African diaspora is what's important to focus on, especially during the times when African Americans in the 1900s didn't know their identity. And we can't talk about Pan-Africanism without Marcus Garvey, as he mentions in one of his speeches called West Indies in the Mirror of Truth. And he said, "I have traveled a good deal through many countries, and from my observation and study, I unhesitatingly and reservedly say that the American Negro is the peer of all Negroes, and the most progressive and the most fourth unit in the expansion chain of scattered Ethiopia." And this is another article by Marcus Garvey called The Climbing Upward that was published on his newspaper, The Negro World. Some of them state that they are solely against the Back to Africa movement, that they are not concerned with Africa, and that they have nothing to do with Africa. And some of them are as black as Africa. This is the sad part of it. On some of them, you see Africa written all around them, and yet they can tell us they have nothing in common with Africa simply because someone who is disposed to continue his disposition as far as we are concerned about Africa leads them into what they are thinking. It suits certain people in this world today to speak disparagingly of Africa, as they have been doing for many centuries. This propaganda of disassociating Western Negroes from Africa is not a new one. It's an old one. For hundreds of years, the white propagandists have been printing millions of tons of literature to impress the minds of scattered Ethiopia, especially that part with civilization, the idea that Africa is a despised place where no civilized person should go. And even Chancellor Williams, who influenced many people through his book, The Destruction of the Black Civilization, as he mentions Egypt as Ethiopia's oldest daughter. Egypt, as pointed out before, was the northeastern region of ancient Ethiopia. European enslavers deliberately sought to prevent enslaved Africans from knowing their origin and maintaining their cultural identity as means of control and to justify the institution of slavery. These colonization schemes resulted the African diaspora from not knowing where they truly come from, so they won't connect themselves to a throne that other nations are mimicking. This is why the throne of David is so important when it comes to the restoration of the scattered Ethiopians.